What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Vendetta Sports Media Daily Show. It is June 12th, 2023. I'm Jerry Walker, and alongside me, here to talk some soccer as always, is Jackson Fyda. Jackson, before we hop into this latest weekend's action, because some good finals all around, how are you doing?
I'm good. Still recovering from that action-packed weekend. Got to see that game obviously Saturday, and looking forward to the international break starting up right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, international stuff's coming up. Club soccer is now done for the year, at least in Europe. MLS obviously still going on. We'll talk a little bit about the MLS later, but got to start out on that one on Saturday. Champions League final, Man City, Inter Milan. City won 1-0, and honestly, wasn't overly surprising.
No, not at all. I mean, I think everyone thought City was going to win. I think the surprising thing was how well Milan played or Inter played up until I feel like the City goal kind of opened things up. Even then, they still played well, but before that, defensively, they looked solid. Like
Mm.
Holland didn't have a sniff on goal for.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, they were playing really well. I was shocked by that.
yeah, the whole team seemed really motivated from the get go. And I would say in that first half, Inter was by far the better team of the two.
Yeah.
City made some mistakes, and honestly, Ederson kind of bailed them out both halves. And we could have seen Milan or Inter getting the goal earlier on, but wasn't to be.
Yeah, and obviously that Rodri goal, I mean, what a goal that was when we talk about it. When you were watching it, it kind of felt like it was going to take something like that, just an absolutely well hit, brilliant finish like that was going to break the deadlock. And
Mm.
City ultimately got it through Rodri, which I didn't think it was going to. If I had to guess who was going to be the goal scorer, who was going to win it for him, never in a million years I would have said Rodri.
Mm.
But it was a good goal, and then the game opened up after that. It was a little, I wouldn't say boring, but it was a kind of defensive stalemate at times, it felt like. But neither team really wanted to fully commit forward. But then once that goal happened, we had an exciting game after that. Obviously,
Mm.
Inter almost scored right after that if it weren't for a brilliant defensive play from Romelu Lukaku. Lukaku.
Yeah.
Inter would have equalized then, obviously, towards the end. Inter was pressing forward. Lukaku's missed header. Well, guess he didn't miss it. It was saved by Ederson, but I'm going to count that as a miss when you're not scoring from about 4 yards out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think really on that, he just didn't get the angle or the power he needed because it was right there. All he had to do was hit it not at Ederson, and
Anywhere else on target, that's a goal. Anywhere else.
it was so tough scenes for the Inter fans. But I'll say, as far as the fans go, Man City was almost non-existent. You didn't hear them cheering or chanting. It was all the loud Italian fans that made the trip to Istanbul, and honestly, that was pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to wonder, I don't know, did you ever see the stats on percentage of fans or anything?
I did not.
I figure a bunch of City fans would have traveled to this because this felt like this was going to be their time. But yeah, you're right. It did feel like the Inter Milan fans were more active in their participation in the game and their support of their team. It's
Yeah,
not that interesting.
yeah, even beforehand, they had a tifo kind of set up at their end. Man City fans didn't have anything. It was kind of like they just wanted to be there and watch the game and go home, but
Mhm.
wasn't the be.
Almost like they just expected to win it, you
Yeah,
know? Like you got to wonder if they're just like, oh, we're going to win this. So they weren't as vocal as the Inter fans who were very, very loud.
yeah, but I mean that's kind of something that's always been not necessarily made fun of, or I guess it is a little mocked and made fun of. But Man City's fans, even at the Etihad, half the time it seems like there's just a ton of empty seats, and it just seems like the crowd's kind of quiet compared to a whole load of other teams, even in the second and third divisions of English football. But
Mhm.
wasn't to be. I want to ask you on like obviously Kevin De Bruyne goes out in the first half with a cramping injury. It looked like I thought that was kind of might have been the end of Man City. It looked like they were going to kind of collapse a bit. The rest of that half, they didn't have much composure. It seemed or couldn't get any control. How big of a loss do you think that was for them?
I mean, obviously losing De Bruyne is going to be a huge loss. He is their creative like front. Basically, I mean, there's a reason he led at the Champions League in assists this season with 7. It's because he's just so good at finding that pass, so good at starting breaks. Even goals where he doesn't get the assist, he helped create the goal just with his passing and his movement and all that. So obviously losing him, this is 2 finals in a row, mind you, for him that he's gone out injured. But losing him, I kind of agreed. I was like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen now because they lost their creative force. And they're bringing in Phil Foden, who's good, but he's not De Bruyne, at least not yet. I'll give Foden credit though. He played pretty well. I mean, do you see the second half? He had the one turn where he turned with the ball and then just kept going, and it looked like they were going to get the second goal and that was going to end it. And he ended up hitting a pretty weak shot that Onana was able to catch. But Foden played well, but obviously losing De Bruyne, I didn't know how City was going to react, but they actually did react pretty positively after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Inter came in with a game plan, and they kind of, I bet even they had to switch it up when De Bruyne came out because, like you said, he's such an orchestrator of that attack, kind of makes the passes, does a little bit of everything, pressing. It was surprising. I was surprised how well Foden kind of stepped in and how it did definitely take him a little bit of time to get into the swing of things in this, but did the job. Would have been funny to see him score at the end just because kind of would have put it away and made it less interesting for the final couple minutes, but wasn't to be. One other thing I want to say, like on this, super physical by Milan or by Inter. They came out and it looked like their entire game plan was just make Man City uncomfortable on the ball and off the ball. As a defender yourself, do you think? Do you like playing that kind of style against good attacking teams where you come in and just kind of body the hell out of them and just make it a physical, gritty game?
It works, especially when you have the physicality when you're going against a team that is I'm not, no disrespect to Inter here, but that is superior to you.
Oh yeah.
Like Man City was the better team. So the game plan worked though with the center back pairings, or the three of them. They were being physical. Holland wasn't able to get much going. They were winning headers against Holland, which you don't see a lot of times. They were ready to go physically from the get. And it definitely works when you do it and you do it right. And they did do it. And to be fair to them, the defense did their job physically. They kept Holland out of the game, and the only way they conceded was on the weird kind of deflection cutback when Rodri scored. So honestly, I think from a defensive standpoint, Inter had a good game plan going in. Inzaghi had them prepared, and they executed it really well. It's just the goal was a moment of quality from a team that is unfortunately better than them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of depth stepped up there, and you just notice it. Rodri just slamming the ball right past the defenders, kind of curled all the way around him. And even that window that he shot into was tiny. Hit anywhere else, and he's either wide or into the defenders, but it's an impressive goal nonetheless. What do you think of, like, so now Man City has the treble. How do you think they compare to some of the other teams we've seen in the past? Or do you think it's one of the weaker treble sides?
I mean, this side's pretty friggin' legit. Like, they're good. I did see there's a funny post from a Bleacher Report football on Instagram where they were like, this is the best team ever. And the comments section lit up with Real Madrid fans. I don't think they're there yet. That Real Madrid team with Bale, Benzema, Ronaldo, all those guys who are winning Champions League after Champions League is still by far the best team I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Agreed.
And I don't know historically speaking, but I'm pretty sure they're up there, if not the best team ever.
Yeah.
But if City can keep this team together, it looks like Pep's probably going to stay another 2 years, unfortunately, is what I'm seeing. Finish out his contract. And now that they've got one, next one becomes a lot easier. You got to wonder if they were to go and win the next 2 in a row while also maintaining their dominance, they would definitely be the best team, I think, in history. Because the Premier League's harder to win than La Liga. It just is.
Yeah.
But right now, they're not there yet. They're the best team I've seen in the Premier League in my lifetime, for sure. I think maybe some Manchester United teams of old would probably, or Liverpool, depending on how far back you want to go, would still hold the mantle. But I think right now in the modern era, they're the best Premier League team I've seen. And if they keep their squad together, sky's the limit for them.
Absolutely. It's hard to argue with any of that because, I mean, pure dominance in the Premier League. Even this year, they won the FA Cup a few times, won the EFL Cup. It was always that Champions League trophy that was abating them, and sure enough, they finally done it. I think that gives Pep his second Champions League title, or at least second treble. I know that much.
I don't
They have one with Bayern as well.
I think, yeah, second or third. I'm not positive.
Where does that put him in? Because I mean, you said he might be gone in 2025 at the end of that season, which that'd be a big loss for Man City because he's been one of the orchestrators and kind of bringing everyone in and getting these players to quickly adapt to things. What do you think his legacy is, or do you think he's kind of cemented himself as one of the best managers of all time? Because I know there's always a lot of shout for Alex Ferguson, who did everything with Man United, won some like 13 Premier League titles, won the treble in the '99 season. Where does Pep rank now?
In my opinion, he's the best manager in history because he's done it in 3 different countries with 3 different clubs. Granted, there are still huge clubs, but he's had to go to different environments, implement his style, and get the whole club, not just the players, but also the fans, all of it to buy into his vision. And he's done that 3 times. Obviously, Barca was something special. City, probably just as successful. Bayern, a little less so, but still incredibly successful in the league. He didn't lose a single league title when he was there. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with his resume at this point. And the main criticism people had for him is that he couldn't win the Champions League with City. Now he's won the Champions League, so I don't really know what people are going to say now. How are you going to argue it now? He's done it. He won the Champions League with them. In my opinion, he's the greatest manager of all time. And the crazy thing is he's still young. Like, he's still really young. And he's going to be around for so many more years. And I'm hoping that he leaves the Premier League as soon as possible so Arsenal has a friggin' shot.
Just anyone else, because it seems like since he's come in, it's been nothing but pure domination by them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of impressive. Kind of sad, but also very impressive.
I mean, he does have the best resources in the world. I think I saw a stat they've spent, over $1 billion, 1.1 billion on transfers. I forget what the number was. It's something absolutely absurd. But he still has to get those players to buy in and beat teams that are also spending at absurd rates like Madrid and PSG. So, I mean, and you can't really argue with his resume. I think at this point, he's the best manager in history. I know some people are still going to argue for Sir Alex, but I think Guardiola is at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And he really is just one of those special managers. It's not the special one, because that's Jose Mourinho, obviously, but one of the best managers ever to have been a part of any team. And he was honestly won a lot as a player as well. So impressive resume, to say the least. Just want to quickly bounce over to a different Champions League final that we had this weekend. Second leg of the African Champions League final between Al Ahly of Egypt and Wydad AAC of Morocco. Don't know if you followed that at all or saw any of that result, but the Egyptian side, Al Ahly, won their 11th title and their 3rd in the last 4 years. Talk about a domination as well.
Yeah, and I do know that the Egyptian sides are very, very strong when it comes to the African Champions League.
Yeah,
that's impressive. 3 of the past 4, and well done.
And the only team that won it, and I guess they lost in the final last year against the team that they beat this year, so they got redemption for that. But don't know much else about that one. Honestly, it's never televised in the U.S., so hard to find.
Yeah, I don't even think it showed up on any of my it definitely didn't show up on ESPN. I'd have to go to my One Football app and scroll all the way down probably to find that. But
yeah,
well done. They get some impressive fan showings at some of those games too, if you've seen those.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love watching the African Cup of Nations just because, one, it's the fans, and 2, on the field, you never know what's going to happen. I know I was following it pretty closely last January or 2022 January, and there were matches that the refs would blow 5 minutes early, and all the chaos would just go on.
That was so funny. Didn't he do it twice?
Yeah, I think he did it twice.
Yeah.
Can't remember what game, but the ref was given 5 minutes of extra time. He blew the whistle right at 90 minutes. People complaining and all that. So he's like, okay, we'll just keep going. Then blows it 2 minutes later and he's like, I'm out of here. And just ran off the pitch.
And they were trying to say it was like heat stroke or something. I'm like, the match fixing. I don't know,
crazy.
Oh, that was so funny. That you're right though. That's like the most fun international tournament to watch.
Not
People who don't watch it or don't give it the respect it deserves. It is freaking so much fun. And when you're watching, you get good players like Sadio Mane, Mo Salah. You got all these dudes, but then you kind of have this like element of, like you said, you never know what's gonna happen. Where it's like crazy tackles, refs ending games early, fans doing crazy stuff. It it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was that picture from the final, I want to say, of Mo Salah trying to take a penalty, and all you see, you can't even see his face. You just see the green laser pointers on his face. Atmospheres like that are what make it insane to me, at least. But who knows? One other, just like before we hop into the U20 World Cup final, because that was this weekend. Did you see the reaction of Claudio Ranieri, the manager who led Leicester to the title in the Premier League in 2016? He got Cagliari promoted on a 94th minute goal. And the scenes there were just electric. They're moving back up to Serie A in Italy, so don't know if you saw that.
I saw that they got promoted. I didn't see his reaction though.
Yeah, just pure joy. And I mean, he's got to be like 75, 76 at this point.
He's been around for so long.
So impressive there. But hopping into that U20 World Cup, you've been the guy following the U20 World Cup all year long. Let us know about the final, because I know Uruguay ended up winning it against Italy.
Yeah, so unfortunately I wasn't able to watch the final live because of my game. I was a little bit bummed about that because I had a feeling it would be a good game, and it looks like it was. It looked like Uruguay had the better chances for most of the game. The Italian keeper was making some absolutely ridiculous saves. It took until the 86th minute when Luciano Rodriguez scored on kind of an interesting – the ball was bobbling around, and he ultimately headed it in from about 3 yards out or 4. So it was pretty close range, and that gave him the win in the 86th minute. So Uruguay wins the U20 World Cup. So good news for Uruguay. Looks like they've got some good youth players. They were missing most of their good attacking players for a lot of this. I know one of their good youth players wasn't released by, I want to say, Real Madrid. Another was injured, I want to say, and they still managed to win it. So, yeah, congrats to Uruguay.
Yeah, mad impressive for them. And I saw the scenes in Uruguay when they returned. Whole streets of Montevideo were packed to the brim as they went on their bus tour. So that's always cool to see. Obviously, not a very long trip from Argentina to get back there. So,
yeah, the fan support for Uruguay was pretty nuts. When they scored that goal, the sound was crazy, which I think is pretty cool because most people don't really think of the U20 level as anything that they should really keep track of. I always have, because that's the competition where you see a lot of young stars start to emerge. Like when Erling Haaland scored 9 goals in a game against Honduras, 6 years? No, 4 years ago? Yeah, because he's, 22?
He's 22 now.
23? Yeah, it's probably 4 years ago. Yeah, it was 4 years ago when he did that. And you get to see moments like that where Uruguay win on South American soil and the fans are going absolutely crazy. So
yeah,
it was a really fun tournament to watch from start to finish. Shout out Israel. They got 3rd place. They beat Korea Republic in the 3rd place game. So that I found that impressive because, again, you look at Israel's side, pretty much all of them play in Israel. You don't see names like PSG, Real Madrid like you see with some of these other youth countries. And they went all the way to semifinals and got 3rd place ultimately. So well done to Israel. Their first ever U20 World Cup appearance ends up in a 3rd place finish.
Very impressive. And I know on the other side, it's got to be heartbreak for South Korea. I want to say they lost in the final 2 years ago.
Ukraine.
Yep, losing the 3rd place match this year. Very tough. I was seeing reports that they might be the hosts for 2025. Not 100% sure on that. I tried to find it, but couldn't find much on it. Yeah, what are your expectations for the 2025 U20 World Cup, if you can even think that far ahead?
Dude, with this tournament, it's so hard to think about that because 2 years for youth players that's just an eternity. When I just think about the US U20 setup, a year ago, I would have predicted certain players to make the roster that didn't even get close. So it's just hard to predict what's going to happen. It looks like we don't even know where it's going to be hosted. I'm looking. Oh, it looks like South Korea. It looks like you were right. So I'm going to guess South Korea is going to have another strong showing because they have been recently. I mean, finals 2 years ago or last time, and then semifinals this time. Now they're going to be the host. That could be the time they finally win it. Um, with Europe, it's an absolute crapshoot because you never know who people are going to have released, who's going to develop. Obviously, England's consistently strong at this level. France consistently strong at this level. But then you have teams like Israel coming out of nowhere doing well. Ukraine won it last time, didn't qualify this time. So with Europe, I have absolutely no idea. It will be interesting to see if Mexico can make it back. They didn't make it to this U20 World Cup because they lost in penalty kicks to Guatemala at the CONCACAF U20s, which was a huge deal in CONCACAF because it's Mexico and you just expect them to be going to everything. So when they didn't go to the U20 World Cup, it was absolutely scandalous. The federation was in shambles. I think they're going to put everything they have into making sure they qualify for the next one. So if they don't make it to the next one, Mexico should be in a state of panic. I do think it is worth noting that when your youth teams don't perform well, your senior team tends to struggle in about 5-6 years. We saw that with the U.S. team of 2018. Those youth teams before were struggling, and then it kind of carried over to the U.S. men's team. So we'll see what happens for Mexico in the future because of this failure, but I expect them to be back. I'm looking forward to the U.S. going back. A couple of these guys on this squad are going to be able to go to the next U20 World Cup. Josh Winder, who just made a $1 million move from USL Championship side Louisville City to Benfica. Yeah, to Benfica. And who's the other one? I think Obed Vargas is going to be back as well. So two of them are going to be back, some other young guys. Hopefully the U.S. next time can get over that quarterfinal hump. They lost to Uruguay 2-0 this time. Uruguay went on and won it. But hopefully next time's a tournament, the U.S. can finally get over that hump because it's been 3 straight quarterfinal exits in a row. So I'm hoping for it. And, it'll be fun to see what happens in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know as far as the U.S. goes, I've seen it with other teams just on the senior side of things. You make it to the quarterfinals consistently, but once getting over that next step is making it into that Final Four. Sometimes you'll just make it and then run away with the rest of the tournament, make it to the final even. So it'll be very interesting to see as far as what we think. South Korea's hosting. Last time they hosted a World Cup of any note that I can think of was 2002 with the World Cup. They made it all the way to the semifinals. Ended up losing out in that one to Germany, I believe. Yep, lost to Germany 1-0 and then lost to Turkey in the third place match. So they'll be up for it. It'll be a fun tournament. I'll definitely be paying attention to it much more than I have in the past in 2 years' time. Mm-hmm. But moving on to, I guess I wanted to say one other thing on the Mexico youth team. It's a point where they're like, we see their senior team. It's kind of the changing of the guards. So maybe this is a little worry for them. And looking at the rest of the CONCACAF, it's U.S.'s time to take over. Maybe even Canada gets a shout because I know they won their qualifying group for the World Cup. I think Mexico's in trouble in the future.
I think they could be. I think the problem with Mexico right now lies with the federation. They've been focusing way more on making money than actually producing quality players and quality teams. And I think they're just kind of relying on the fact that they dominated CONCACAF for so long that nations like the U.S. and Canada that have been putting a lot of money into developing players, developing infrastructure, have passed them recently. And you saw this problem. I forget if there was a lot of turnover with the federation recently. I want to say there was. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, new head coach for the senior team, and I think the federation had some change up as well. But they gotta right the ship, and they gotta right it quickly. One of the more disappointing things about what they did was they eliminated promotion relegation from Liga MX to the second league, which was, I think, heartbreaking if you're a real soccer fan. In Mexico, in the U.S., or just anywhere. And I think that's going to have some ramifications for them as well. They're focusing more on the money rather than the actual soccer. And I think that's going to harm them. Hopefully, for CONCACAF's sake, they get it going again because I want this region to be as strong as possible. I think most people here do. It's also kind of funny to see Mexico crumbling recently because I grew up in the time when the U.S. rarely beat Mexico. When we did, it was a big deal, and now we're just doing it all the time. And if we lose on Thursday, I'm going to be disappointed. We've reached that point. So it's kind of been fun to see the U.S. take pole position over Mexico in CONCACAF and see Canada pass them. But I do hope they figure it out because, they're going through a little rough patch right now.
Yeah, especially with them hosting the World Cup in a few years' time. They think they'd want to have their strongest team out there. But that brings us to our next topic of conversation. It is the international break at the moment. No matches all around Europe. There were some today. I was watching Germany and Ukraine. Honestly, a pretty good match. Ended up being 3-3 there. But CONCACAF Nations League semifinals on Thursday, like you said. Panama versus Canada and the U.S. versus Mexico. Let's start with, I guess, that Panama-Canada one. What do you expect out of that one?
Canada win. I'm 100% expecting that. I think anything less would be shocking. Canada is I feel like there's a big three in CONCACAF now. It's going to be the U.S., Mexico, Canada. The three hosts, I think, are the best teams. And after that, you're going to have cycling teams that rotate through with quality generations. But Canada right now, a very strong team. Obviously, Alphonso Davis. Jonathan David, one of the best young strikers in the world. I think Canada wins this one. Don't count Panama out, though. It's a CONCACAF game, and we all know what happens in CONCACAF, so you never know. But I think Canada's going to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, Panama, they've been in the World Cup numerous times as of late. I can't put my finger on if they were in Qatar right now.
Wow.
I don't think they were because I know they made it in 2018, but Canada barely won their group in the qualifying over Honduras and won by 1 point. So maybe some stuff to work on. Meanwhile, Panama won their group relatively convincingly over Costa Rica and the powerhouse that is Martinique. But the big one, I think, for most fans around the CONCACAF area and even around the world, it's a great rivalry. You're talking about it a little earlier. U.S. and Mexico. What do you think? Is it going to be a continue of U.S. dominance, or is Mexico going to kind of get back there, take over again, and get back to winning ways?
I think the U.S. should win. This Mexico squad is missing their best players because of injury. No Chucky Lozano, no Tecatito. I forget who else they're missing. I'll check on that in a second. But they're missing most of they're missing their star players. The U.S. has everyone minus Tyler Adams and Tim Ream, which is both are huge losses, but they have everyone else available, including all of our attacking talent and the new addition of Balawan up top. So I think the U.S. should win this game. And you want to say because it's on U.S. soil, the U.S. are going to win, but we know what happens at these games. It ends up being like 75% Mexican fans.
Oh, yeah.
So like it's kind of hard to say that's going to make a difference. If anything, it might actually help Mexico. But I do think the U.S. has the quality, and with Mexico missing most of their players, they win. The one thing I think that could harm the U.S. is that we have an interim coach who was the assistant to the other interim coach. We don't have a head coach right now, and our other interim coach left to take a position in Qatar, I want to say. So now we have the assistant coach, B.J. Callahan, who looks like he's a good coach, but when you go from interim to another interim and a dude who's never had like a legit head coaching job before, that I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. I'm hoping he just lets them go out and do their thing, continues on with what Hudson was doing. But I feel like that could be a problem for the U.S.
Yeah, it's hard to get that consistency and that passage of play going when you're changing managers every other week or every couple months in the U.S.'s case with interims and now the head one. But there's one player I do want to ask your thoughts on because I was surprised he was left out of the World Cup roster, and Ricardo Pepi came back, and I think he scored 5 goals in his first game after the World Cup for the U.S., regardless it was against Grenada. But do you think he'll get playing time in this one?
I think he should start realistically.
Okay.
It's against Mexico. He has experience with the group. I think he should start this game. Balawan comes off the bench. I'm hoping this is a good thing for him that we have Balawan now, because now I feel like before this he was kind of emerging as the guy up top. There wasn't going to be a lot of competition. Daryl DK can't stay healthy. Sargent's very inconsistent. And those were kind of – and Haji Wright, very inconsistent. Payfok, very inconsistent. Pepe kind of emerged as that guy. And I think that can be kind of a bad thing when you're a young striker if you just become your nation's goal-scoring talisman at a young age, because you don't really have to prove a whole lot more. Now that Balawan's there, I'm hoping that helps both of them elevate their game with the national team, because they'll be competing for starting places. So I'm hoping that it helps Pepe in the long run. He definitely, in my opinion, deserves to start this game. He's also had a very good season with Groningen. He's going to likely be moving back to the Eredivisie with either PSV or Feyenoord, it looks like.
Okay.
So I think he should start this game. He has experience with the squad. He's had a good year, and Balawan should come off the bench. But right now, I still think this should be Pepe's position to lose. I know I might be in the minority, but he's been around. Balawan just came in. I think you have to earn your spot.
Absolutely agree with that. I think Pepe should have been on the plane to Qatar, but he wasn't. And kind of that lack of maybe attacking prowess was on note at times for the U.S. in that World Cup. It looked like they're just struggling to create chances and couldn't get it done at times. But predictions for these, you said Canada. Do you have the U.S. beating Mexico?
I do. I think it's a close game because these games are always close. 2-1 to USA.
And then who wins the almighty final on June 18th? Canada or the U.S.?
God, I want to say the U.S., but I have this gut feeling that Canada wins it this time.
That would be something.
Really, really hoping I'm wrong. You know what?
Won it? Won any major tournament?
They've won one Gold Cup. Okay. They've won one Gold Cup early 2000s. I'm going to say the U.S. wins 2-1 after extra time. But, man, I just got this feeling that Canada is going to do it. But back in the U.S.
Yeah. I can see that happening. I do agree with you. I think it'll be U.S. and Canada, kind of a coin toss. I think the U.S. probably has the better players overall. Canada has the stars that can change it. And like you said, Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies. So it'll be a fun one to watch. Meanwhile, we also will have the UEFA Nations League semifinals, which honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the Nations League, at least in Europe, really. Kind of just seems like an unnecessary tournament thrown together. But nonetheless, it makes them a ton of money, so why not do it? We have in one semifinal, Netherlands and Croatia, and in the other one, Spain and Italy. These are going to be two fun semifinals, I would think.
Yeah. Obviously, Croatia coming off of another pretty good World Cup showing. Looking to carry this momentum. Modric is still playing, which is absolutely unbelievable. But it looks like he's trying to finish off with a victory with Croatia. So I'm hoping for his sake that they get it done. I think the Netherlands takes a semifinal, though, between the two of them. I think Netherlands has a good squad going together right now. Very good defense right now as well. You got Ake, De Ligt, Van Dijk, all those guys. So I think Netherlands takes that semifinal. And then the next semifinal, we got Spain and Italy. That's going to be a fun one. I think that's going to be the most fun one.
Yeah, it always is when these two teams play. We've seen them play so many times in the World Cup and Euros in the past that got to have that big rivalry with each other. And one hand, Spain had a kind of a poor showing at the World Cup. Didn't impress too much. Did get out of the group stage, but didn't do much else after that. Meanwhile, Italy didn't even make the World Cup. So they're looking to kind of get back their recognition as, oh, we're still a powerhouse in Europe. We're still a good team. And we saw it with the clubs this year, making the finals of Conference League, UEFA League, and Champions League, despite going 0-3 in those three finals. Italy's trying to get back to the way they were in 2006 and more recently in some of the Euros.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting that despite their lack of World Cup appearances recently, they won the Euros and now they're in the Nations League semifinals. and I forget if they were in it last time as well, but I think they've had some other decent UEFA showings of late. But I do find that contrast interesting that they're doing well in UEFA competitions but struggling with FIFA ones. But you're right. The league is doing better. The teams are doing better. They made all three UEFA finals this year. Obviously, went 0-3, but still making all three is a very impressive thing. I and I'm feeling Italy in this one. I am.
So they get redemption for the 2021 semifinal when they lost 2-1 to Spain. Shout out Ferran Torres for getting a brace there, but I, I kind of am agreeing with you on this one. I actually think Croatia will win the first semifinal just because I've doubted them so many times in international matches before, and they just find ways to win games. And meanwhile, the Netherlands, still a youngish team, they do have all the pieces, but kind of concerned on that attacking side of point because saw a huge drop off from Cody Gakpo, who was a star in the World Cup since he moved to Liverpool, kind of disappeared a bit. But if it ain't broken, that midfield of Luka Modric, he can just control a game, and this will be a 1-0 game, one way or another. I could even see it extra time, maybe penalties. Croatia's a veteran team. They know how to just grind out these games and find ways to win some one way or another. So I have Croatia. Spain and Italy, it's a coin toss for me, but I am going Italy. I do think they're slightly better, slightly more motivated as well, probably. But we'll see what happens. So you have Netherlands and Italy in the final. Who do you have winning it?
Italy. I think they're going to be so pissed off about the World Cup. They need something. I think they get this one done. I like their squad. I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be that winner of that Spain and Italy match wins the final over either Netherlands or Croatia. Honestly, I would love to see one of those top two teams win it, whether it is the Netherlands or Croatia, but I just feel like it's inevitable that Spain or Italy will lift this trophy. And Spain's looking to get back because I want to say they lost in the final 2 years ago. I think they lost to France, but yeah, they lost to France. So maybe they can get back to it, avoid 2 straight defeats. But otherwise, some great other international stuff going on. It's a good time. Sad club season is over. MLS isn't over, though.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can get into real quick now. You were talking earlier before we hopped on about rumors of Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, the MSN trio getting back together at some point before they all retire. Do you think that could be in Miami?
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to happen anywhere, I think it's going to happen in Miami because that's the place that can offer them all the money to come together. I don't know how true those rumors are, but that would be so awesome to see. And can you imagine what that would do for the league if you had all three of them playing? It'd be incredible. Like the fan support, the viewership, everything would skyrocket. I want them to get it done. I want Inter Miami to get it done just for that. I don't think it'll happen, but it would be very interesting to see. And it's going to be interesting to see who follows Messi to Inter Miami in the coming days, weeks, and years. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with his move and what that kind of brings with it.
Absolutely. And I know Neymar said the other day, might have even been yesterday, that Messi coming to the MLS is a game changer, and it's going to just bring all eyes onto the league. You already saw the social media aspect of Inter Miami gaining something like 5 million followers in 2 days when Messi signed. You were saying in the MLS match yesterday that you were watching, the halftime show was all about Messi and just talking nonstop about the Argentine star. So yeah, just you think it's really going to be that big? Because I do. I think Messi coming to the U.S. is going to be massive for the game here. Going to grow it, especially with the Copa America next year and the World Cup in 3 years' time.
Yeah, and I think the timing is perfect. Like you said, the Copa America and the World Cup. I think all three of those things with Messi as a rival is going to help soccer skyrocket in this country. When you bring a superstar like that who comes, I think you're going to get so many more people playing. You're going to get little kids who play soccer suddenly wanting to play more because of Messi. They want to train more. They want to join MLS academies. They want to be like Messi, who's playing for their team. Or especially in Miami, I think it's going to be huge for the youth development there. I think it's going to be huge for for MLS in general, though. Having, in my opinion and many people's opinion, the best player of all time playing in your league.
It can't do any harm, because if it does, the MLS will continue just being the worst case scenario is it's just a retirement league once again, which it's definitely trending in the opposite direction at this point. We discussed this on the show last week, but it's just going to be fun to see Messi here. I do think he absolutely tears it up. I think he's still at such a high level that it's going to be kind of like when Zlatan came over, just pure domination for however long he's here for, but it'll be fun to see. I'm very, very excited. And even myself, I don't watch the MLS all that much, but once Messi gets in, I'll definitely be tuning into the Inter Miami games, whether it's just to see him playing or see what the crowds are like, just kind of the whole thing. It just brings more eyes to it for a sport that hasn't really been that big yet in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. And the good thing is when people tune in and watch him play, they're going to see other players play. People are going to see that Messi's moving here. They're going to suddenly look at their local MLS clubs or their local USL Championship clubs. Everything about this move is positive for soccer in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. There's no harm can be done by this. So it'll be a blast to see. Hopefully he does come out soon and start playing, but we'll see on that.
Leagues Cup, July, calling it. July 21st, I think, is the date.
Is that when they first play?
That's what is being rumored. It's either that or August after the Leagues Cup, but I'm really hoping he starts out as soon as possible.
Yeah, who do they have in their Leagues Cup?
I know that first game is against Cruz Azul, and I forget who the second game is.
Yeah, either way, that'd be fun to see him. Sooner the better for all of us fans and viewers back home. So be fun. Messi is among us in the U.S. now, and it's gonna be interesting. But is there any other football, soccer news that you want to talk about before we move on?
No, we're kind of in this little dead period right now after club season ends. The international break is starting this week, but we haven't really gotten into it yet. There's going to be some Euro qualifying going on as well. So you can keep an eye on that. Those games are always fun, getting to see the mighty nations like Gibraltar and San Marino taking on some teams. So those will be a fun watch. Other international friendlies. Yeah, keep up to date with MLS because that's all we got at this point. And
we got those bangers on Friday. Gibraltar hosting France, Malta hosting England.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. Oh, actually, this one might be the most exciting. As I'm looking at San Marino at home to Kazakhstan. Let's go. I'll be tuning in for that one. But no, in all reality,
those games are fun.
They are. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, those. And you get to see a nation like Gibraltar, which is like 50% giant rock, playing against France. Those games are fun.
Yeah. I mean, even like the small ones, I know we're kind of joking with some of these smaller teams, but it means so much more to them, even if they just get one win. Like I know San Marino has won maybe like 3 matches in the last decade. So if they get a win, it's like they've won a trophy. They're just super excited about it. The crowd gets into it, and it's just a celebration for such a small country. But who knows? It's all good stuff that ultimately, at least in Europe, will lead to the Euro 24 in Germany next summer. That'll be a fun tournament to watch. But before we wrap this all up, NBA Game 5 tonight. Nuggets looking to close out the Miami Heat. It's 3-1 at the moment, back in Denver. You're an NBA guy a bit, aren't you? Less so than college basketball, but
I like
NBA. So what's your thoughts on how the series has gone so far? What we might see tonight?
I think it's gone the way I expected it to, and I think most people should have expected it to. The Nuggets are so good, and Jokic is absolutely unbelievable. When you watch him play, we were watching the games with my dad. My dad doesn't watch a lot of NBA, and you see him doing these step back behind the head threes with the shot clock expiring and just nailing them. My dad looked at me and was like, "Who is this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's Jokic." He's so good, and he's got such a good supporting cast around him, and they're at home. They're gonna win it. They're gonna win it tonight. They're gonna win the NBA Finals.
Fingers crossed, because I'll be repping the Nuggets. growing up in Denver. Gotta love it. Very excited. And I mean, you mentioned it. The cast around him has just been so much better this year. Not even that they're better. Obviously, Aaron Gordon's been playing well. Bruce Brown, KCP have all stepped up throughout the season. But it's the fact for me that Jamal Murray is healthy. This is the first time we've seen a healthy Jamal since the bubble when he went off and helped the Nuggets get to the Western Conference Finals. This year, he's just turned his game up even more. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can close it out. I honestly would think Jokic will get the Finals MVP if the Nuggets close it tonight, but I'm not. I would put a shout in there for Jamal Murray for sure.
I think Jokic gets it.
You can't lead the playoffs in points, assists, and rebounds and not win it.
Yeah, but fair shout. They do some interesting stuff with that award sometimes. So.
Yes, they do. I mean, I remember Andre Iguodala won it in a few years in the Warriors' first title. I want to say 2015. So that sounded like an interesting shot at that point, but makes sense a bit. We look at the numbers and all that. But one other news ahead of the game tonight: Tyler Hero has been listed as questionable from doubtful. Do you think he has any impact for the Heat at all? I know he'd probably be on limited minutes anyway, but
I mean, maybe, but realistically, probably not since he's just coming back. I mean, it's good to see him back, though, because Heat have definitely been missing him. But, I mean, I say that. They made it all the way to the NBA Finals. But, I mean, still, Tyler Hero is a very, very good player. And I don't know if he makes a huge impact tonight just because he's been out. And what was he listed as? Questionable before they said he was going to play? Or
so he's been doubtful for all of this finals game, but he was listed as questionable tonight. So It's more, he might be a game time decision sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you got to say it won't hurt with how the series has been going to have him back. But I question how helpful it'll be. Granted, I say that he goes out tonight and scores 20, 30 points, but good to have him back. I still think Nuggets take this one. They take it pretty comfortably, and they win it.
I agree. I think from what I've looked at, the betting line is Nuggets are 9-point favorites. I think that could very well be covered because, I mean, the whole city of Denver's up for it. The whole team seems not content until they have that trophy in their hands at the end of the day. So fingers crossed, Nuggets get it done tonight. I know could possibly the Stanley Cup get handed out tomorrow night. Vegas up 3-1 there. Great time of sports. Always love this early summer stuff because, I mean, obviously football, soccer's all over the place. You have hockey playoffs, basketball playoffs. I don't know if you're a baseball guy at all, but been following the College World Series, MLBs. It's just a great time of sports and keeps going. Sports makes the world go round, honestly. But Jackson, any other comments, any other things you want to discuss before we wrap this up?
Basically it on my end. Just looking forward to the game tonight. Go Nuggets. I'm on the Nuggets side. I do hope Caleb Martin starts playing well because he's a Nevada boy.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he can do something tonight. But, go Nuggets. And looking forward to the international break coming up.
Absolutely. Game 5 tonight. International break the rest of the week and even into next week. And then the chaos that is the transfer window will open up. And God knows what can happen there. I feel like it's going to be hard to break what we had, all the news that we had last week. It's going to just be chaotic for a little while there, but we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. As always, check out our other stuff. We got the link to the Vendetta Sports Media website going across the ticker below. Check out all of ours and all of our coworkers' stuff at there. NBA, NFL, NHL, all the sports, you name it. We have something there for you. Thanks for watching. Tune in for another episode tomorrow and have a good one.